the TIMFD podcast. Today is my favorite day is about appreciating every day as it comes, no matter what life throws at us. We hope that this podcast speaks to you. And if it does, please like, share, and comment. Now let's find out why today is our favorite day this week.
Hey everybody, I have Tonya with us today, and
Hi,
Tonya
people.
is my wife, but Tonya also is one of the speakers at the She Ascends Women's Conference. It's going to be here at the Harbor Church in Odessa, Florida on
Yes, sir.
February 21.
Yes.
Now I've asked all the ladies, because you're the last of the ladies
Yes.
that I have asked to come onto this podcast, that Alex and I have asked to come on this podcast, and each one of us was given a word. Okay. And so your word was what?
Well, honestly, it was the last word. So I got picked last or asked last to join. And so it was the leftover word. So, but it was fitting. It worked out well for my life, and it was walk.
Walk. And that's walk and not grow faint, basically,
Yes.
off of Isaiah 40:31.
Yes.
So you first looked at it as, okay, I've been given this word.
Yeah.
But then you started realizing it actually fits what your life has shown and what God's shown you. So can you explain that just a bit?
Well, yes, I have been working on dealing with walking through seasons of loss throughout my life. And, we've lost a child, but it's not just about that. It's not just about losing a loved one. There's so many seasons of loss that people walk through, from losing finances to that unexpected health diagnosis to empty nest.
Yeah.
Going
a
through
lot
that
of ladies
change.
go through that.
And loss of a dream.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many ways we go through loss and have to walk through or go through to discover new norms in our lives when that happens, and it causes change. And so a lot of times, what I discovered for myself over the years, a lot of times when you go through these loss, you experience a lot of the same feelings and emotions. You're basically walking through grief every time you're going through these losses, but they are uncomfortable, and they make us want to run from them, hide them, bury them.
They're not there.
Medicate them, whatever. It's just we don't want to walk through those emotions and those feelings that comes with those losses. Yeah. Even though they're all very similar feelings, we rather hide from them if we can.
Well, it seems easier in the short term to want to run from them.
It is in the short term, of course. You want to jump over them and get right to the healing, right to the thriving, right back into your old norm, which is probably never coming back.
No, you have this new norm that
you
takes
have
place.
this new norm coming, and we don't want to face it. We're scared of it. We're uncertain about it. We don't know how much it's going to change our life. And so we get scared, and we don't want to face it. And our fears and worries then can move in and consume us. And the only way for myself I've discovered to get through seasons of loss is I've had to learn how to walk through them. Okay. I had to learn how to navigate those emotions, because the challenge with walking through loss and experiencing all those emotions, they really stem out of grief. And grief is the same thing of anger, sadness, question, doubting, and there's no linear pathway. There's no, go through this step, then this step, and this step, and you're all good. No, you're going to bounce around like a ping pong ball through all of these emotions, all of these places in grief, until you get to that place finally, if you're walking through them, if you're experiencing them, if you're learning how to navigate them with God's help, to a place of acceptance. And that's where we get to that place where we can find what our new norm is and how our life has been changed. But here's the cool thing, and the thing I discovered most importantly, I think, during the loss of Rebecca, has been when we walk through our grief, how in the midst of those emotions, we can discover joy again. We can discover how to thrive, even though we're feeling still emotionally messy. We don't have to sit and feel and think, oh, I just got to be emotionally messy. I'm just grieving. This is my life. This is how it is. And this is too bad, so sad. It's really an opportunity to take ourselves, when as I like to describe it, when I'm a hot mess, which is me stuck in those emotions, stuck in the anger, the sadness, or the questioning, doubting. Whatever they are, we can get stuck in those. And that's another setback that can keep us from thriving and learning how to grow in joy in the midst of our losses, if we get stuck in our hot mess of our emotions. And so I like to call it a holy mess. Okay. I feel like it's messy when we go through our emotional or emotions and our losses. And, but it can become a holy mess because God can do amazing things in us and transform us and help us learn to thrive and have joy. At times we don't think we can. At times in experiences, we don't think it's possible, but it is possible.
So the importance of having that relationship with Jesus amid all this stuff brings that opportunity for holiness, even in the mess. Is that
for
what you're
God
saying?
to shape us to become more like him. Absolutely. It's in the pain and in the suffering and walking through it. If we try to skip it, jump over it, bury it, pretend it didn't happen, or any of those other things, then we leave it still residing within us.
Right.
And we try to move on with our lives, but it will come back to get you. It will come back to haunt you. Because I've found even in walking through my loss of Rebecca, that I had a lot of other losses come back up and bubble back up to the surface that I had to go back and revisit and walk through again. And it complicated my loss with Rebecca. And so sometimes that happens too and catches you off guard. And you hope you have one loss to navigate and you end up finding out there's more. You know, sometimes you have health diagnosis and you're missing a lot of work and you might lose your job on top of dealing with health problems. So sometimes our losses can get complicated as they pile up. And, but all of it can, be walked through, and God can help us get through it. He can help us thrive in the midst of it, and get us to acceptance and healing and moving forward into our new norm if we will seek Him in it.
You used two words I find interesting. So one is thrive. You said that a couple of times, and joy. So it almost sounds like an oxymoron that you could thrive and have joy in the middle of the mess. So how do you, and amid that mess, so how have you, and I've watched you, so I can't give answers because I've watched you work through this, and been impressed as you walk through this. So what do you mean by thrive for one, and what do you mean by joy another? If you could just kind of define those before we move forward.
Well, I think thriving comes when we choose joy.
Okay.
I think thriving is the consequence or the outcome of choosing joy. Benefit of choosing joy. Because now I should probably back up a little bit here. Talk about the difference between joy and happiness.
Okay, that's what I was kind of trying to get to.
Because I think a lot of people think when you have joy, that means you're a happy person. And it's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
And it's not what I mean. I think they're two very different things. Because joy is a choice that we choose to focus on God's character, focus on His truths, and applying it and meditating on them, applying them into our lives, where happiness is based off something external, something external that happened or an event or one of your bad dad jokes on Sunday might make me happy, or some of the fun shirts of yours you wear that make me laugh and have some happiness in the moment. And those are important too. I'm not dismissing the importance of being able to laugh at simple things again and that kind of thing. It's important, but it's fleeting. Yeah. It doesn't last. No. But joy can last if we choose it and if we look for it, and we can find it by trusting in God's character of who He says He is and what He says He will do for us.
So you're saying to lean into that?
Yes, you have to. You have to. That is the only way to find joy and choose joy over all the other stuff going on in the midst of your holy mess of what you're navigating and the losses that are bubbling up or the one you're currently working on. Joy is what can get you through when you choose to focus on God's character and go back to His truths of, I love 1 Thessalonians 5:18. It says, rejoice always, pray continuously, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you. And that became a very important verse for me because rejoicing always doesn't say, go rejoice that your daughter passed away, but I can rejoice in the fact that she's in eternity with God. I can rejoice in the fact I'm going to see her again one day. I can rejoice in the fact that I know God's going to help me walk through this difficulty in my life. It is. And so those are a choice though. And I have to choose it every time I want to focus on the loss or the pain of my loss or the struggle of my loss or the struggle of the other things that have bubbled up and the difficulties that have come as a result of what I'm walking through. And so, I hope I don't know if that kind of explains it.
That's the first thing. So that we are talking about defining joy, and then from joy, if we choose joy, which comes from the Lord, at least this is what I'm getting.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm hearing.
The joy of the Lord is my strength, as Nehemiah says.
And then we thrive So can you explain what thrive would look like to you? What does that mean?
Well, first I want to go back to the Nehemiah, the joy of the Lord is my strength.
Yes.
Because I remember when I was reading that, I'm like, how is that?
I remember you saying that.
Yeah,
I do. I remember saying
how
that.
is the joy of the Lord my strength?
How does this work?
I didn't quite have my head wrapped around what joy was supposed to look like in my life. And sometimes I still was confusing it with thinking it was partially a feeling. And if I wasn't feeling happy, therefore I wasn't joyful. But that wasn't the case.
Yeah, exactly.
And once I kept doing it and kept practicing rejoicing and choosing ways to find joy in my life, and trusting in God's character and learning more about His names and trusting in His names of who He says He is, became more impactful.
Yeah.
And that is what helped me get to I can get out of that pit of despair because I'm focusing on God. I can get out of my pain, of my ugly emotions, because I'm turning it over to trusting God, who is helping me learn how to get through this and thrive through this. And He's giving me truths in His Word to help me understand how I can continue on and not have to stay in that dark, desperate pit, that black pit that you feel like your losses can take you into. And they do.
Yeah, they do.
They can take you into some really deep, dark places. And we have to make a choice. And I almost felt like some days I was clawing my way out.
Yeah, I saw that, and that's, we all go through that when we go through devastating loss.
Well, we can get stuck in it. That's when we become a hot mess. It's easy in your grief and in your pains of loss and disappointment to get stuck in that grief and the pain it can cause you, the emotional pain. And we do have to work at it. It doesn't just go away by itself. Yeah. We have to take action.
Yeah, that Psalm 40. The famous, if you want to call it, song that U2 actually did, which is that, I basically looked up to him, God, and He pulled him out of the miry pit onto a rock, right, onto Him. Yeah. And that's what you're talking about. You're talking about, I got to keep my eyes looking up.
Well, I think one of the, and it takes me a second to, I'm going to do a really brief story from Sarah and Hagar, because I believe their story represents, and I'm not beating up on Sarah here, I just want to say that, but her life depicts things that happened to us. She was a woman that was barren, and she was now considered too old to have children. She had lived her whole life, and you were looked down upon back then if you couldn't have children. That was part of your purpose. And God promised her husband a child. Yeah. And so,
an entire nation.
To come from their lineage. And here they are, both old and up there in age. And as a matter of fact, I looked it up. When that first happened in Genesis 12, Abraham was 75 years old when God came to him and promised him a whole new nation. And then when he was 80 years old, He confirmed that promise again in Genesis 15. And then finally at 86, he got Hagar pregnant, which was Sarah's maidservant. And so when God's plan didn't come to fruition, Sarah did decide to take things into her own hands. And how many times do we do that?
We all do.
She had loss of never having a family, loss of never becoming a mother, loss of having to be looked down upon for being a barren woman her whole life. So I'm sure she was not a very happy person some days. And doesn't get into how hot messy she was, but
I'm sure she was a hot mess at times.
But it does tell the story when she decides to tell her husband to go sleep with her maidservant because she thinks she needs to help God out to start this nation, to bring this child into the world that she's been promised.
That's a little G God mindset that she got into.
Totally. And then what happened after Hagar got pregnant? She, I think, got jealous. It doesn't say that in Scripture, but she mistreated her.
Yes.
She mistreated her to the point that Hagar ran away. Yeah. And she left and ran out to the desert, and an angel of the Lord found her there and said, "Hey, what are you doing out here? What's going on?" Now, keep in mind, please, this is my very brief description of the story, but it's amazing. You got to go read it. But and Hagar said, my mistress is, mistreating me, and so I ran away. And the angel of the Lord told her to go back. And he said a lot of things to her, but one of the things he said that I found very important was he said, God sees your misery. God knew what she was experiencing, and the angel of the Lord said, "Go back and do what your mistress, who was Sarah,
said." Can you say that phrase again?
God sees me. God sees your misery. And what I loved and what really spoke to me was Hagar's response to the angel of the Lord at that moment. She actually called God by his name, which was El Roi.
Oh, yes.
And that translates as the God who sees me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that's so important when you're going through loss, because one of the things that you feel is happening to you is you're not being heard and you're not being seen.
Yeah.
Nobody sees your pain you're going through, and nobody hears your pain you're going through. And that's, I believe, how Hagar felt. And I believe that's why she ran away. And God showed up and told her, I see you, and I see your misery. Yeah. And she was obedient. She went back. She followed what she was directed to do. And then I think, like I said, 86 years old was when Abraham had Ishmael with Hagar. Well, it was until Abraham was 100 that he ended up finally getting Sarah pregnant and having Isaac.
Crazy.
So it took some time. And let me tell you, Hagar went through some more stuff living with them back then, and especially when Sarah got pregnant. Yeah. And let's talk about the miracle of the fact that she even got pregnant when they're that old, that God did show up and do what he promised in his divine timing, not ours.
Nope.
And so they ended up, Sarah didn't like Hagar in the family compound anymore, and went to her husband and blamed him for her being there, and he gave her permission to do with her what she wanted, and she kicked her out. Yeah. But then God still found her, took care of her, and created a whole nother nation out of her lineage, as well as what he promised to Abraham. In spite of all that. So even in spite of whether we follow and wait on God's timing, or we take things into our own hand because we think we need to help God out, he still has his plan that gets done, even when we try to get in the way and intervene and try to control the circumstances or control the people, which is exactly what Sarah was doing in that moment. Or we could be like Hagar, do what we're told, be obedient. God said to go back, she went back. When she got kicked out, then she finally left and just trusted God. And she thought she was going to die out in the desert. But God showed up and took care of her and provided a well, and her son got to grow up and get married, and they had a whole new nation based off of them. And so, but she was obedient. And so, and God's plan still came to be. So God's plan still happened in both situations, but one was a lot more messier and consequential to her and her own emotional state of being a barren woman who couldn't have a kid. Now she has one. Her maidservant who's in front of her every day with her husband's child.
Added right onto the mess.
Yeah, I just can only imagine inside how that made her feel, and realizing the impact of her decision of what she did in that moment. And so I'm just trying to really work on their story. Really spoke to me and resonated, and I'm just really asking the Lord to help me not try to heal my way. Help me to not try to rush things, which you want to do when you're walking through grief. Okay. Help me not to try to manufacture joy or happiness, but I can create it. I can go to comedy events. I can ask you to wear silly shirts that make me smile, or laugh at your dad joke, or whatever.
You do artwork, you can get out into nature.
All of it is important, but the growth to thrive comes from joy.
Yeah.
And it comes from learning how to trust in God's character in the midst of our loss, of whatever we're going through, whatever that season is, whatever new norm we're learning how to walk into and accept, and find our next chapter being open and new in, and trusting God in that, versus us trying to control the heck out of it and do it our way and create a bigger mess in the midst of it.
So the holy mess is seeking joy, and as you seek joy, you can then thrive. Can you now explain to me what thriving is to you? What does that mean to you?
Thriving to me means that my emotions don't control everything I do and think anymore. Okay. That I've learned how to get better at regulating them and not letting them consume me, obsess over them, and not letting them dictate how I'm going to live in the moment today, or dictate my fears and worries that I'm going to sit in and stew in for the future. It's me making a choice to do something different, living how God wants me to live versus living in that emotionally hot mess of a place that has me all jacked up all over the place.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I don't have days like that, because I do. I believe we all do.
You're human.
Yes.
Shocker.
But the more I've learned how to seek God's joy in it, trust his character in it. When I say seek joy, I'm talking about trusting his character, trusting his word, applying and meditating on the truths versus my thoughts that betray me, my thoughts that mislead me, my heart and emotions that definitely want you to react out of them, right?
Yeah.
Man, let me tell you, walking through the angry phase of grief, not a lot of fun.
No.
And it's really easy to have meltdowns on people and be edgy and irritable.
No meltdowns. I don't remember those.
So neither,
But that happens. That's life.
It does. And you have to find truths. And joy was the greatest truth I could find to help me work through the anger.
And I remember when you said that, how can I have joy in this when you read that? I think it was out Nehemiah you said?
And I'm not, Nehemiah, the joy of the Lord is my strength.
That. When you said that, I was like, that's a great question.
And it's not minimizing or dismissing the anger. The anger's the hurt.
Yes.
The anger's the pain
Yes.
that I'm feeling. The anger's whatever, if I'm not feeling heard or seen in the moment. But it's okay to recognize and acknowledge that. And I try to do that.
Yeah.
Gosh, I'm angry, Lord. I really feel like I want to be seen at this moment, and I'm not. But I know you see me.
Yes.
I know you hear me.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm going through. And I know you have the capability to help me thrive right now in this moment. If I trust you, instead of looking for this from other people, help me to look to be seen and heard by you.
So that's the key to this thing. You're not saying people don't matter.
Right.
We
need others.
You're not saying that.
Yes.
But
I've spent a lot of time in counseling.
Yes, you have.
Yes, we do need others.
Yes, you have. And
yes.
you lead Celebrate
Safe
Recovery.
Places.
You go to share groups.
You got to share
stuff.
and get it out.
Yeah.
You got to talk about your grief. You got to talk about the emotions and the pain, and you got to have a safe place to do that.
Can you elaborate on isolation and the danger of that? No, because it seems like that would be an easy thing to jump into. The
most dangerous place to be is alone with yourself in your head. So.
Okay.
Isolate, and that's one isolation. Another's isolations when you don't get out and do anything anymore.
Okay.
You stop enjoying life. You stop getting out and doing things that used to make you happy, or you enjoyed, or you had fun with. You
tie to memories.
You stop living.
Like
you stop going to church. You stop going to Bible studies. You stop doing things, coming to Celebrate Recovery.
Yeah.
Whatever the case may be, when we stop and we disengage, we disconnect from others, our life, and just only do the bare minimum. If it's just go to work and go home each day, whatever is the bare minimum.
Trying to
that
survive.
Isolation is
trying to
just
survive.
You're just surviving. That is all you're doing is surviving.
And not thriving.
You're not thriving. You're not growing. You're not changing. And you're actually getting into a deeper, darker pit.
Okay.
And it's going to make it more challenging, not impossible, to climb out of. But it's a choice. Joy is a choice.
Yeah.
Happiness is fleeting. Joy is a choice. And we can choose to, with God's help, to find ways to take those baby steps.
Yeah.
To start climbing up towards the Lord, climbing up out of that pit back to God, rather than staying deep in there in our despair and in the muck of our emotions and thoughts.
So what would have been the darkest place for you as far as, because obviously your past, you grew up with 5 dads. I mean, you had a lot of craziness within your younger years. But because of the loss of Rebecca, I imagine that's probably your darkest spot is when Rebecca passed away. And the things you did, because I see this art, we'll get into all this stuff that she has a whole I don't know what you call that. What do you call that?
Well, let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah.
I don't think it's as necessary. I think this birthed out of just going through the most painful loss I've ever gone through in my life.
Okay.
It is the most painful walking through Rebecca. I've been through a lot of losses. I've learned how to do a lot of what I'm talking about in those losses, but never at the level I had to go with Rebecca.
Okay.
And so one of the things that birthed out of this loss is I did, I think it was about a year and a couple months after Rebecca's death, I ended up going to this women's retreat with Cinda, who's our speaker
for the conference.
And even though she's already been going to our church and I knew her here and we gotten together with her some, not a lot, but some, at the retreat, I was really looking forward to getting to hang out with her more. But anyway, I went to this retreat. And they gave us these books, and it's called One Color a Day, and it's actually a daily art practice and visual diary.
Okay.
And I'll show really quick what like the pages look like in here. And you're supposed to like write something
like little
here.
Sections and stuff.
Yeah, about what you're going through or feeling or what's going on in your life. And then each square is like you're supposed to paint a color in it. Like how the color is supposed to be like your emotion for that day. Like what are you feeling that day? Well, I started this book and I picked it up and I knew I was in the middle of my grief.
Yes.
And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make this about my grief. And I'm going to write in it how I'm feeling each day.
Okay.
And I'm going to then go find verses to tell me truths about what I'm not only feeling, but what I'm thinking. Because a lot of times we're thinking something attached to those emotions. Yeah. And it's usually not positive, and it's usually not healthy.
Yep, stinking thinking.
And I wanted to go find God's truth. So if I was having a sad day, I would write down, I'm feeling sad today. I'm missing this, or I wish that, or, I'd write down what I was feeling sad about. And then I would go look up verses on joy or love from God, depending on what I was thinking and telling myself.
Okay.
I would then go look up verses to counter whatever that lie was.
I remember seeing this
that
as you were going through
unhealthiness
that,
was that I was focusing on. Right. And then I would write them into each square. And then I would draw a teeny tiny picture to kind of reflect what that verse meant, whether it was a cross or praying or tears or whatever. Connected to that verse to kind of bring that creative. I was trying to bring my creative side back.
How did that help?
Well, how it helped was after months of writing in this journal, I had sadness chapters, I had angry chapters, I had my questioning chapters, I had my who is God chapters where I just wrote who God is. And I wrote a bunch of characteristics and truths about who God is and the verses that back that up. I wrote out truths about who I am to God. Because also in the midst of when you have loss, you kind of feel lost yourself and you don't feel like you know who you are anymore. So I would go and look up truths about who God says I am to him. And I wrote them in my journal. And the purpose of all of this, I didn't know it at the time. Well, I guess maybe a little bit I did it because that's why I did this, was I would go back then. And if I was having another sad day, I would go back to my sad section and read what I wrote before and read all the truths I wrote for my sad times or my angry times or my questioning times or when I felt lost and like I didn't know who I was times. I would go back and find those sections and just reread them. And that helped me because you forget. That's the other thing about loss. It affects your memory like nobody's business. And I can't tell you how many times I would read God's word and forget everything I read. How many times I would read awesome Christian devotionals or books on grief and forget everything I read.
I remember that phase.
And it was very frustrating about that part of grief because when you're numb, you definitely don't remember nothing. No. And when you start climbing out of the numbness, your emotions are so strong and real that it overpowers the memory still, that you still don't have the capacity. So this helped me remember. I didn't have to try to force myself to remember anymore. I could just go to my journal here and review the past truths. And sometimes I added on more. Sometimes I added on new stuff. Sometimes I added in more artwork. I just keep adding to it as whatever I needed to, whatever I was feeling that day of my grief.
Okay.
And I would just then go log it in here, write it down, go find truths. And sometimes the truth was how to emotionally regulate myself. How to
Can you explain that real quick? What do you mean by that?
Well, emotional regulation, just what to do with your emotions when they happen to you, how to talk about walking through them, reframing them, how to not give your power away to them, and learn how to visit them and navigate them without letting them consume and direct your life and react out of them.
Okay.
And so from this, I'm currently working on a new book that I'm hoping, God willing, we'll have ready by the conference where it's going to be a devotional. It's actually not a book. It's a devotional where I'm taking these truths
that you wrote in here,
that I wrote out of this journal, and I'm putting them into a devotional.
Okay.
And I'm going to separate that devotional into sections. I'm going to have the sad section, the angry section, the questioning section, and then I'm going to add on the things that help me counter the lies, the forgiveness section, the joy section, peace, the things I needed and I was so searching for and so seeking and so hungry for in my loss and my seasons that just to make it easy to go find them again. And my hope is that this will be something that others can use to navigate their seasons of loss. And the thing about the book, and that's part of the introduction that I'm going to tell people is, this is not a linear book. You do not start with page 1 and read all the way through and until you're done. Yeah. This is a devotional that if you're having a sad day, you go to the sad section. Or if you're having an angry day, you go to the angry section. If you have a day you need God's peace, you can go to the peace section. If there's somebody that is part of the loss that caused you pain that you haven't been able to forgive, and you're resentful and you're bitter towards them and you're ready to walk through forgiving them, you go to the forgiveness section.
Okay.
If you're questioning and doubting God and you're angry, part of the anger is part of that comes out in that too. But how to even navigate that and truths about navigating it and how it's okay to navigate it. It's okay to feel those feelings. It's okay to question God. But what do we do with it? And so the last sections are all the sections that there's so many more topics I could add to this book. Yeah. But I'm limiting it to the ones that really help me navigate my seasons of loss that were important for me to really focus on God's truths to help me thrive in the midst of my season versus get stuck in being a hot mess all the time.
Well, and you brought up that even questioning God, David did that. Mm-hmm. He did that in Psalm 3 and 13. Yeah. And so for you, you worked through that with this.
Well,
correct?
So my why section's not huge.
Okay,
because
that's not a bad thing.
It's okay. It's okay. And I do have some stuff in here, but the reality for me is I learned years ago in Celebrate Recovery that getting stuck and asking God why keeps you stuck.
Got to keep moving.
It keeps you stuck because more than likely, I'm never going to know why Rebecca had to have a mental illness. No. Never going to know why she had to die so young. Yeah. I'm never going to know why you had to have cancer. Nope. I'm never going to, or why we've had to gone through some of the financial crisis we've gone through. I'm never going to know the whys. Yeah. And honestly, at the end of the day, they don't matter.
No.
What matters is, and I've learned to ask myself instead, is what? Yeah. What can I learn? Yep. What can I do differently? Yep. And I ask the Lord that. Yeah. Lord, what do you want me to learn from this? Mm-hmm. What can I do differently? Yeah. And so in that section, I get a lot more into talking about trying to shift out of the why to the what to help people shift out of, because you can get so stuck in there. In the why God, why me, why this way, why my child, why my, my husband.
To stay there. And that's not a good place to be.
It isn't, because it can make you very bitter, very angry. A lot of unhealthy emotions can come and join you there.
The what is the productive side of it.
It gets you moving forward. Yeah. What gets you moving forward again? When you think about asking the Lord, what can I learn? And what do you want to teach me? And what can I do today differently? Then you give yourself some hope for change, hope for the future, and hope it won't have to last.
Yeah, the why puts you in isolation.
Yes.
The what takes you out of isolation.
Yes.
And because now I'm going, what do I need to do? What do you want me to do? What do you want me, and where do you want me to go? And so, that makes total sense. I love that. Yeah. And so you are going to be bringing some of these things, and hopefully the book, that's what we're hoping for. Hoping that the devotional gets done.
God willing.
And get that ready for everyone. Mm-hmm. And what do you want and maybe it's not getting stuck in the why and looking at the what, but what is it that you want if someone took your breakout session, because you're going to speak in the main section of the session anyway, but
a little bit.
Yeah. But if someone wanted to go to your breakout session, what do you want them to get out of it when they leave? What is something that you would want? And maybe it is that if you're stuck in a why, to go to the what.
I think I don't want to limit what somebody could get out of it.
Good.
Other than to say, I hope they find hope.
Oh.
I hope if they've been in a hopeless place or in a dark place or stuck. Yeah. Or not knowing what to do, that they find hope.
Okay.
And hope for whatever they need to do, whatever change they need to make. Yeah. Just that they have hope that life can change, that there is light at the end of the tunnel, that God does have a plan and for our pain and a purpose for our pain, and he wants to use us to help others. But we got to get there first.
We do.
We have to take care of ourselves first and focus on what God wants us to do, and not sit around waiting and hoping, well, if I sit here in this dark pit long enough, that God's just going to show up and miraculously lift me out and put me on the ground and set me on my way, and I don't have to do anything about it. I don't have to process nothing. I don't have to change nothing. And
that's not the case.
He wants us to be engaged with him in a relationship.
Yes.
And that relationship comes from us acting upon his word.
Yes.
And so I just hope people find something hopeful. I would love it if they found hope.
Well, and that I'm going to go back to that Psalm 40 thing, because that's exactly what you're saying. Mm-hmm. If someone comes to this conference who's in that kind of darker why place, or hopeless, like you're saying,
any place that's not that's keeping them stuck.
Yeah, because that Psalm 40 says, "I waited patiently on the Lord." So this, at least, it's looking up. You're doing your part of looking up, right?
Yeah.
And he turned to me and heard my cry. You want to be heard, as you said, and he lifted me out of that slimy pit. The hope that you have that he'll pull you out of that mud and mire, and put my feet on a rock and gave me a firm place to stand. I will now sing a new song.
That's right.
And I've seen you singing a new song.
Yeah, trying.
You are. You have been, and that's been an awesome thing to see. Mm-hmm. So this has been pretty heavy. So I want to kind of ask some other questions, if you don't mind.
Yes, please.
You don't mind. Okay,
please shift us.
I want you to see that this is a jokester in our home too, just a tad.
I don't want to.
So,
all right, go ahead.
Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Thanksgiving. What did you get for me to wear at the church on Thanksgiving? Not Thanksgiving, but the week before Thanksgiving. Yes.
Well, for the whole month of November.
That's true.
I bought you a adorable Thanksgiving shirt that had turkey faces all over with big googly eyes.
Yeah, it was like a shirt like this, but just lots of googly eyes all over the place.
Googly-eyed turkey faces.
And she wanted me to wear that on Sunday morning.
And you did.
I did, because I wanted you to smile.
Yes.
Now,
and I appreciate that, because little things like that can make you smile help your attitude and help you to go from just feeling your pain or your sadness to experiencing a different emotion.
Yep.
And so finding those little ways, and I appreciate the ways you try to help me with that by putting up with the shirts and clothes I ask you to wear.
I wore the ho-ho-ho shirt.
I know, I love it.
Yeah, she bought a ho-ho-ho shirt that was all ho-hos
and
everywhere.
I get it. It's temporary, but it puts a smile on my face.
Mm-hmm.
It takes away any thoughts of feeling something else in the moment, and helps just my attitude at that time.
Yeah, because you're going to go through holidays. You're going to go through birthdays.
Holidays especially. Because
you're going to go through those special days throughout the year, whatever they happen to be.
Well, and let's talk about that for a moment, because there's some losses, like when you lose a loved one, that the holidays are really rough.
Yeah.
There's always anniversaries of, wedding, if they're a spouse, or, anniversaries of wedding anniversaries, or their birthdays. But the holidays are particularly rough. So I really appreciate when you are willing to do those silly things for me, and you're secure enough in yourself. You don't care what anybody thinks.
I wore the surfing Santa this week.
Yes, I know.
I had that all over, but hey, and then I got a good picture with Doug Knowles Sr., because he was wearing one too. You may not know who he is.
Right.
Probably don't, but it's a pretty funny picture. But you always find those kind of goofy things to do that with too.
It's taken time.
Yeah.
It's taken time for
me. This was the major jokester in our home.
Yeah.
She was the practical joker. She was the one that caused trouble for the grandsons. Had a blast with them. When Rebecca died, that part of you for a little while disappeared.
It did.
It disappeared, and
I couldn't find it.
Reasonable. And
that's why joy also became one of my focus.
Yes.
Because after the first two Christmases, I'm just like, I am struggling to smile. I'm struggling to feel happy. I'm struggling to find joy.
Yeah.
I was like, I was getting exhausted by it. I was getting exhausted by feeling sad so much and just stuck there. And I didn't want it to keep going that way. And so there were things I had to do practically by introducing new hobbies or things to do, as well as seeking truths that I dug up and started putting in this grief journal and started going back to over and over and over and over.
Yep.
I can't tell you how many times I've sat down and gone back over these truths, and just to remind myself of what God has to say about those different places emotionally I've been and have revisited periodically throughout my grieving process.
And Tonya is also a cat lover. If you don't know that, you will find that out if you go to her thing. I'm sure she'll bring up the cats one way or the other. We have 3. What are their names?
Cuddles, Truffles, and Chaos.
Chaos. And Truffles is the youngest one. She was picked up actually at the church here.
Yeah.
Someone just dropped a little kitten of 4 weeks old out in the front of our church. And if we didn't pick it up, it would have probably been eaten by one of the big birds out here.
Probably.
And so she came home with us and took care of her. And
been there ever since.
Yeah. And Tonya has great joy in picking up that cat and just kissing and hugging all over her while she's just going, meow, just screaming because she doesn't like it.
She's not a fan of me, even though I rescued her.
Yeah,
she loves you.
Yeah, but it's hilarious to watch.
Yeah.
But
I torture her anyway and force my kisses and hugs on her, whether she likes it or not.
And Tonya does have she was a businesswoman, both in real estate and the mortgage world. And also has been leading pretty much every ministry in this church other than the men's ministry.
Yep.
That's it. Everything else you have led at one time or another over all these years. And now you're full-time here at the church, and you've been here part-time forever as you were doing real estate and everything else. And so she's has that business side of her, and we rely on you a lot on the legal side of things and the business side of things, just because of your history.
The graphics and the videos and a lot of other. It takes very time-consuming,
And so very fortunate to have her here on staff, to say the least. But
T-shirts.
T-shirts, all that stuff.
New one's coming.
Yes, that's true. So for you, the goal with Tonya is that if you come here, the hope is that you will get some hope, that you'll leave here with hope. Right? That's the key.
Hope that, God can do something in the midst of your holy mess.
And He can.
He can.
He can.
You can thrive in it. The great thing about joy is it can exist. It can coexist with our feelings.
Okay, there we go.
So no matter what we're feeling in the midst of our loss, joy can coexist in the midst of that. But we do have to choose it.
So Cinda had brought up she may be able to get her book done as well. She didn't have a total title yet. Do you have a title at all? Are you still working on that?
Well, at the moment, I'm considering Holy Mess to High Heels.
Okay.
And
makes sense, the holy mess.
Yeah, the holy mess is us walking through
Why
our loss and how we can learn to thrive in the midst of it until we get to that place where we feel like we're coming out in the acceptance and the healing and the new norm, where we're walking more firmly and we are more sure of the steps we're taking to live our life each day, or their decisions or our emotions don't feel like they're controlling us like they once did. And we're back to enjoying life again. And it doesn't mean every second's perfect, but we have that confidence, because our loss can change us, and more than likely will. And so that's another really big insecurity it can cause people. And that's why you can feel lost in your loss, because you're like, who am I anymore? Because the person I used to be is gone. And so learning how to accept the new person you're becoming is when you're walking confidently in that new person, and without
those
apologies.
Heels on and going.
And they might be wobbly and it might be uncomfortable at first, and you may not feel so secure, but you're doing it.
With the Lord, I'm going to keep going
Lord, with the transformation He does in you through it all.
That's awesome. Awesome. Looking forward to having that book done. I wish I was going to the conference.
Both.
Yeah, I wish I was going to the conference, but I can't. And we keep on saying that each time. Alex and I cannot go to the conference because we're both males, and therefore we can't be there. But we get to get a little bit of this.
Don't worry, I'll tell you all about it.
Thank you. We get a little bit about all these podcasts, and we get to hear a little bit more. Very exciting stuff. I hope you join in on that. All the links to going to this conference are going to be on this podcast.
Yes.
And make sure to go do that. When Tonya has her book ready, I'll put the link for the Amazon stuff on it as well. God bless you all. And remember, every day can be your favorite day. Just
go
keep
register.
looking up God. Register for the
Get a cat if you don't have one.
Do not get a cat. God bless you guys. Take it easy.
Thank you for listening to TIMFD, Today is My Favorite Day. Views, comments, and opinions are those of the host and guest alone. TIMFD is produced and directed by Alex Korn. Thank you for listening. Have a great day, live intentionally, and be very blessed.